Doom may no longer be eternal, but id Software sure is. This unfortunately may no longer be the case. Doom the Dark Ages Revelations is a very bittersweet release. It's a massive campaign, introducing a lot of great new mechanics, marking the end of Doom the Dark Ages and the modern trilogy of Doom games, and unfortunately its release was marred by the mass layoffs by Microsoft, impacting a huge chunk of id Software's development staff. It's extremely unfortunate to see so many people were rewarded for their hard work and talents with being fired, instead of being able to celebrate their new release as they should have been allowed to. Now, I'm not going to speak too much on this. I have no industry insider knowledge, and everything I know stems from rumor and hearsay. But it's just extremely unfortunate that something that should be celebrated, the release of a new game, is now clouded and overshadowed by massive layoffs of the people who made it possible. Supposedly, id still has a functioning staff and will be continuing to use id Tech instead of being forced into the Unreal Engine slot mines, and I hope that that is true. But they've lost a lot of people, a lot of veteran staff members who've been there for a long time, and the employees that have been let go don't really share that same optimism that the corporate optics is portraying here. I'm extremely skeptical, and as a fan, I'm worried about the future of Doom, Quake, and my favorite AAA studio. But I digress. As I said, Doom the Dark Ages Revelations was a huge DLC, adding a ton of new content. 5 new levels, a new hub world level, classic levels lifted out of the original game, new master arenas, new weapons, new combat mechanics, and new enemies, all continuing the massive overarching story from Doom, tying the Dark Ages in more with Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. If you haven't watched my first review for the Dark Ages, I recommend going to that video first, as I spent that video deep diving into presentation and core mechanics of the game, and I'm not going to be rediscussing that here. My opinions discussed in that video are a launching point for this video, so watch that one first. I played Revelations on Nightmare difficulty with only slight setting changes. I removed the melee slowdown completely, so meleeing is quick and seamless with the rest of my combat, and I disabled extra lives. Other than that, all footage that you see here and my opinions on combat and challenge are based on the Nightmare difficulty setting. I'm going to start with the story since I have the least amount to say about it. There will be some spoilers here, so skip to the next part if you care about that sort of thing. Doom the Dark Ages Revelations picks up after the events of Doom the Dark Ages. Doom Guy is still doing what he does best, kicking demon ass, as the forces of Argent Nur continue their fight against the demons, and this time around, the Con Maker from Doom Eternal makes her appearance, scheming from the shadows. Doom Guy gets his shit rocked by a massive demon called the Henchman, who is a lackey of the Hell Priests. Doom Guy's armor and shield are destroyed, and he is sent to Purgatory where he meets the Wretch, who gives him a new spear weapon and eventually forges Doom Guy's Praetor suit from Doom 2016. There's a lot more that occurs involving Merrick and Valen, the Betrayer, and King Novik and Thera, and their relation to the Con Maker. There's a lot that ties the Dark Ages into 2016 and Eternal. I was going to make a comment about how explaining where the Praetor suit came from was a bit of a Surf Dracula moment, but in doing a little background digging, the Wretch was already mentioned in Doom Eternal's Codex, and is mentioned as being the creator of the Praetor suit. So that's what I get for not reading the Codex entries ever. I know it's supposed to be a big fan service moment to see the Praetor suit come back, but I gotta admit I was a little disappointed because it's my least favorite look for Doom Guy. I absolutely love the design in the Dark Ages, so I was sad to see the cape and spikes go, but I knew they had to tie the story back in with 2016 eventually, so I still don't think they went deep enough connecting it back with 2016 though. They didn't explain what happened to the Chaos Realm between games, nor did they reveal how or when Doomguy gets sealed into the sarcophagus leading up to the events of 2016. They're really leaving all sorts of gaps in the timeline, I'm assuming so they can just drop in and tell a story wherever they want, but it does sort of make the trilogy of events incohesive, at least in my opinion. Now, story in Doom is really not all that important to me, it's just added context for the gameplay, but it's still worth noting. I'm also really disappointed that, once again, this did not lead into Quake at all. It would have made sense for a Quake conclusion to be the explanation of why the Cosmic Realm does not appear in later games. The only direct connection to Quake comes in the form of the final boss, Zalgoroth, who is directly referenced in Quake Champions as an elder god from the dimension of the doomed, with the track from Quake Champions, Goroth, also appearing in Doom Eternal as well. They should have brought that track back for the boss fight. I don't know what id's current aversion to Quake is, but I really wish the Dark Ages had connected or led into Quake in some way. Though I do have to admit that the tonal and thematic connections to Quake are vastly toned down in Revelations compared to that of the base Dark Ages game. The Cosmic Realm lack any story significance this time around, though one level and, like I mentioned, the final boss do occur in the Cosmic Realm. The design never really gets as trippy or surreal as it did in the base game, and it doesn't quite feel as unique compared to the other levels that occur in Hell, Purgatory, or Argent D'Nur this time around. Luckily, the gameplay negates any negatives that I have regarding the incohesive story elements. Revelations is to the Dark Ages what the Ancient Gods was to Eternal. It takes everything great about the foundation of the base game and ramps it up to 11 with new mechanics and the most challenging combat arenas yet. All of the enemies from the Dark Ages return, with some newcomers. There's a new variant of Hell Knight, which glows purple and explodes in a massive area of effect, doing a ton of damage. They're hard to avoid and definitely become a priority when they come out. As well as nightmare variants for the Revenant and Whiplash, 2 new zombies, one that explodes, leaving damaging purple goo behind, and another that heals. New, stronger variants for the Agadon Hunter and Cosmic Baron. The Pain Elemental and Archvile return. They are both utter bastards in Revelations. The Pain Elemental throws Lost Souls at you like in every other Doom game, but they are very mobile and accurate, and without a chain gun to kill Lost Souls as they are being thrown, it becomes more of a challenge to take them down. The Archvile teleports around, summoning demons, bringing up these massive armor shields to protect itself, and shooting out big walls of spikes similar to that of the Creedmaker boss fight. There are also new demons. The Buzzsaw, a big demon that rolls around on wheels and does fast damage, and the Warlock, another absolute bastard of a demon that teleports around, giving off fog that makes it hard to see and buffing the defense and speed of all demons in the area. Levels are broken up in standard Doom fashion, with linear corridors feeding into larger arenas, with keys and secret hunting in between. Unlike the other modern Doom games, Revelations does not show you secrets on the minimap, so you really need to look hard to find them all, and some of these are really well hidden and cryptic. Secret hunting can feel a little bit tedious, I won't lie, when you come back to a level and you're looking all over the place for the last secret that you can't find. Some of these took me quite a while to find, and the arenas don't respawn, so you're kind of just wandering an empty level. The environments are much larger, and much to my satisfaction, they did bring back the ability to fast travel between checkpoints on replay playthroughs, which does help with secret hunting, but it overall does feel kind of tedious after a while. That said, it is really annoying that you can't just exit back to the hub from the pause menu. You need to go to one of these fast travel locations in order to get back to the hub world and change your level. Each level also features a good amount of puzzles to solve. I found these to be well designed, they require you to think a little bit, and do add some welcome variety to the level traversal. There's even these cool music puzzles, which are really well hidden, and don't contribute to the percentage of each level, so it's very easy to miss these, but they award you with weapon skins. The biggest addition to gameplay is the new spear weapon, an offhand that swaps with the shield, and it completely fundamentally changes combat. The Dark Ages combat was entirely centered around the shield, blocking and parrying, charging at enemies, and throwing the shield to stun and break armor. The shield was all about getting right into combat, up close, and initiating brutal, quick attacks on demons, utilizing shield and gun combos to kill enemies quickly. The spear, on the other hand, is a far more mobile weapon. The attacks are slower and more sweeping, but using it gives you the ability to dash and chain hook. The addition of dash and chain hook make my Doom Eternal heart happy. The game still doesn't really feel like Doom Eternal overall, the combat loop is significantly different still, but man, it felt good to dash and hook around. I especially like that since the hook is tied to your offhand, you can chain hook around with any gun, not just the super shotgun this time. This creates some really cool combat opportunities, like using a chain hook to swing yourself around an enemy while pelting them with accelerator plasma bullets. I found parrying with the spear to be significantly more challenging. I've said it many times before, but I am not good at parrying in games. I actually find it very easy to parry with the shield, especially because the snap-up animation is so fast, and if you whiff a little bit, the shield is still there to block, With the spear, the timing is different, and I really struggle to parry sometimes. I had a better time parrying projectiles than when it was up close, and for that reason, when it came to fighting something like a Cyber Demon or Komodo, I still preferred to use the shield versus the spear. Perfect dodging or parrying charges the spear up to unleash special attacks. This includes a stab, which does a ton of direct damage to an enemy and breaks armor, the slam, which falters and does damage to an area around you, and the ability to throw the spear from afar, which breaks shields and stuns enemies. You can instantly swap between the spear and shield at any time, adding some very good depth to the combat. Now this takes some getting used to. You'll forget that you don't have dash when you switch back to shield. You'll try and bash with the spear. And honestly, the addition of a bunch of new buttons and inputs is confusing and overwhelming at first. Spend some time remapping your controls. Changing your controls to something more comfortable makes a huge difference. Changing the spear and shield controls so that similar functions have the same input is huge too. Like, make sure that your parry buttons are the same for both, so that your muscle memory doesn't fuck you over. Considering there were updates to the Dark Ages which also added the ability to swap between runes and melee weapons on the fly, you now have to manage 11 guns with weapon mods, 2 super weapons, 3 melee weapons, 2 offhanded weapons with various abilities, and 4 runes, all that can be swapped on the fly in the middle of combat. There's a lot to remember and a lot of button inputs that need assigning. I 100% agree that it's overwhelming at first until you get used to it. Again, spend some time remapping your controls to feel more comfortable. Here is how I map mine in case you need a suggestion. Swapping between the spear and shield mid-combat does legitimately feel great, and you start to recognize different uses. The shield became my tool for quick, powerful damage to just delete smaller demons quickly, or for when I was against super heavies where I needed to focus on parrying. The spear became my mobility option, my method of quick escape when I was about to die, or to quickly maneuver around an enemy to deal damage from above, or as a way to get in and deal a lot of damage quickly and then dash or chain out of the way. The addition of the new demons and the spear make the combat not only feel faster, but more frantic too. And I think that's the main difference from how Eternal feels from the Dark Ages. Eternal was chaotic. It was fast, with a lot of inputs and a lot going on, but there was always a sense of control, whereas the Dark Ages Revelations is frantic. It's fast with a lot of inputs going on, but I never really felt like I had a sense of control. Fights were intense from beginning to end, where every moment required quick thinking and overcoming what is thrown at you. I felt like the arenas this time were far more challenging, and required me to adapt to what was going on. The demon synergy this time is insane, as it throws insane matchups of super heavies with hordes of heavies and fodder demons in the most annoying ways possible. In the base game, it felt like it was much more viable to just pick a weapon and stick with it while making sure you parry, maybe switching to something like the rocket launcher or Ravager against Komodos or Cyber Demons for health regen, or the Reaver to break armor as a by-case need. And while you can still do that in Revelations, based on the sheer number of enemies being thrown at you at all times and the different types of demons, I feel like it's best to have a plan of attack for at least some of the demons that it throws at you. My personal Doom dance kind of became using the shield or spear with a super shotgun for combos against the Mancubus, Hell Knight, and Arachnotrons, making sure I was using the shield for Agadon Hunters or Cyber Demons so that I could parry better. I mainly use the combat shotgun against Cyber Demons because it kills them really quick and replenishes your armor. I found the rocket launcher to be a necessity against Pain Elementals because it would kill all the lost souls that spawn around it. The shield is useful against the purple Hell Knights because throwing it disrupts their explosion. I found the spear mandatory against Komodos and Archviles to get around quickly and avoid damage, and pull myself to their location. Swinging around the Komodo with the accelerator or cycler was a great tactic. Throwing the spear at Cacodemons was a great strategy because it destroys their shields, leaving them vulnerable to get in close with a shotgun melee combo, or shoot them from afar with a rocket or reaver hit. Revelations really forces you to think one step ahead in order to survive the toughest encounters. Prioritizing different enemies is also far more important. You don't want the Archvile or Warlock on the field for a long time, as they make everything else harder. You need to be aware of when a Baron or Komodo show up because they will be pressuring you the entire time. Again, the demon synergy this time around is the best of any modern Doom game. It's exhilarating, and the thrill of finishing a particularly challenging arena, and there are some that took me close to an hour to complete, is extremely satisfying. This is Doom combat at its best, and I love it. The boss fights are probably the best in the series. I did struggle with the henchman. I found his parry timing to be extremely awkward, and he hits like a train. Marok was a really fun boss fight and is more in line with the bosses that you fight in the base Dark Ages game. And then Zalgoroth, which was a really fun fight, and I really liked figuring out which guns to use at which sections against him. The falling floors pissed me off though. I died a ton before finally killing him, and every death was because of the falling floors. It's honestly a perfect fight, testing your map awareness, weapon strategies, and enemy awareness. I like how it forces you to switch between the shield and spear when he fires off the wall of projectiles that can be destroyed with the shield, and then you need to chain hook to avoid falling into a pit. It's a very good final boss. The last big note of gameplay is that there is no turret, dragon, or mech sections in Revelations. Instead, there are classic Doom sections. They start off as flashback sequences to Doom Guy infiltrating a hospital. He kills actual human soldiers here. You only get to use a shotgun, the 93 shotgun, which is the shotgun from the original game, and it does a ton of damage. It kills enemies in one hit. You can't jump during these sections. They're linear and essentially highlight Doom Guy's background and showcase a bit of why Daisy was so important to him. As you progress, you gain access to classic levels, ripped straight from the original games. You can still only use the 93 shotgun, but you fight demons now. Playing through the classic levels in this way is cool and fun, and I can kind of see this being a test for maybe a new side game based on classic gameplay. If this is the case, I hope it's a new game with classic style gameplay and not just a remake of Doom 1 and 2, because that would be unnecessary and honestly unappealing to me. I'd rather have a new game in a classic style with new levels than a remake. Completing all the levels awards you with the 93 shotgun, which becomes a new super weapon that can be swapped back and forth with the Calamity Blade or big fucking crossbow. It shares an ammo pool with it, but has more shots that can be fired off. There's no massive AoE splash damage effect, but it does a lot of concentrated damage on one target. Though you cannot use the shield nor the spear with either the Calamity Blade nor the 93 shotgun, so I found their uses to be extremely restrained, because without the ability to parry or dodge, you will die quickly, even with a super weapon. My biggest complaint with the DLC is the lack of replayability. One of the best things about Doom 2016 and Eternal and the base Dark Ages was being able to go back to the previous levels and replay through all the arenas with a full maxed out kit. You can't do that in Revelations. You can't go back to the first level at all, and when you go back to the other levels in the hub world, the arenas don't respawn. Meaning the only arenas that you can redo are the challenge arenas or the master arenas that you unlock at the end of the game. Which is still fun, but I wish you could go back and play through the entire thing with a full maxed out kit like you could in all of the other Doom games. Just quickly touching on music, I personally like the soundtrack to the original Dark Ages, and I really like the soundtrack here. There's a lot of cool tracks here, I really like the string instruments used, and there's some return to motifs from classic Doom tracks. I will talk more about my opinions on the soundtrack in another video. I mentioned that in my review of the Dark Ages, and I'm actually going to make it this time. I think overall, I still prefer Doom Eternal, especially the Ancient Gods, which I still find to be the best experience in gaming ever, but Revelations has definitely secured the Dark Ages as a close second behind Eternal for me. It's really fucking good. It's unfortunately uncertain what the future of Doom is going to be. Microsoft lists it as a pillar of their brand, and supposedly there is a new game already in the planning phase. I'm assuming there won't be another DLC for the Dark Ages. They seem to have gone with one big DLC instead of two smaller ones. I know a lot of people think that Doom should go on a break, and I don't fully agree, but I don't also disagree. I don't want Doom to become yet another yearly slop release franchise, but I can't imagine that id Software would just pump out a new Doom without any good ideas or innovation in the mix. I'm sad that this is even a concern, as once again, it's marred a really solid and fun new Doom release.